Beloveds, I'm KamalaDevi, and I'm here to wish you a happy new moon in Scorpio. I would say this is a good time for self-love, but it's not just because of the intensity of the lunation in Scorpio. Like every time is a good time for self-love. Uh, so I want to talk about that theme today and a little context, which is in November, NaNoWriMo, which is write a novel in a month, challenge happens. So authors like myself all around the world will focus really hard on a project or a set number of pages or words and really give themselves to this challenge of write as much as you can. And so I'm in that annual challenge, and I've decided to dedicate myself to my new book, which is Poly Playbook. And the first chapter, of course, is self-love. I know it's almost cliche. Like self-love is so important, and it's such the foundational place to start. And even if you're not poly, it will have a profound impact on your relationship to everything. Like we only see things as we are. So if we're in self-love, then we can have loving relations. In fact, people would ask me, I'd get interviewed on the media about how, like, why it is, what's the secret? Like, why is it that my relationships have been so successful for so many years, and which is of course relative, but as a coach and a sex and relationship mentor, I've seen so many case studies. Like I've watched what makes healthy, harmonious relationships and ecosystems. And people who come to me are often in crisis or breakdown or challenge. And I look at like, what is that? What is the difference? And inevitably, the key distinction is when people have a foundation of self-love, then the challenges come up. They might have the same amount of misunderstandings and jealousies and issues that arise, but if you have self-love as a foundation and as a primary practice, then you see these challenges as an opportunity for growth, for learning, compassion for self and other. And when that's missing and you're approaching relationships from a place of insecurity or self-loathing or limiting beliefs about your worth, then there's a kind of a sabotage that happens. And that means you're coming needy to the relationship. And when, stuff arises, because relationships take work, you start to blame your partners. You start to get frustrated with them not changing. You start to feel like it's, like you're the victim of the situation. And it really is an attitudinal shift of like, is your cup full? Can you overflow to your lovers? And, we all know, put your own oxygen mask on. You can only, love others to the degree that you love yourself. We know these things consciously, but we don't always know how to practice it. And we don't always know like how to maintain it, because, nobody, unless you're a fully realized master, you're not always in self-love. There's going to be moments of insecurity, and there's going to be times when you need the reflection and the reminder of your worth. And that's okay. That's beautiful. But it is a question of like, are you coming full with the occasional reminder and you're doing the work to fill yourself up? Or are you needy, hungry, clinging, maybe projecting, onto your partners? And so the key about self-love is you really have to feel like motivated, like I'm doing this for myself and I'm doing it for all my relations. And that motivation, unfortunately, comes from the knowing that if I don't do my self-work, like love, practice, self-care, self-pleasure, really nourish myself, I could bankrupt my whole system. Like I could bankrupt my partnerships and the people around me because it causes unnecessary suffering and drama and pain. So hopefully you're really motivated. And I know most people get this up here, but then it's like, how do I, sequence that all the way up, all the way down? And that's a big part of the playbook, right? Like my subtitle for my new book is to close the gap and dissolve the difference between theory and practice in open relationships. And so the theory, we all get it. Self-love is important. The practice is tricky because we have all these mixed messages that say self-love is taking yourself to a spa and you're okay as you are and you don't need to change and you're perfect. And like, if you can, there's certain self-love messages that will send you off track and send you into like just reinforcing your ego or loving the false self. And they don't really get under the hood into what is your highest self and what's the truth. And sometimes self-love at that high level looks like growth, looks like challenging yourself. So it looks like shadow work. And sometimes it is deep acceptance of what is and where you're at, and not so much working to change and try to, transform everything, because that can also be spinning on a hamster wheel. So where do we actually put our leveraged effort? And it's usually both and. Like the answer to almost every question is, hey, there's partial truths. We've got to do this work at the level of the personality and the ego and the nervous system and like, the emotional body and mental body. But we also have to do this deep transformative soul work, which is very subtle and harder to, to see ourselves. So I use this metaphor of a monk and a monkey throughout the playbook. This is the dualistic, sense of the animal body and emotional body and all of the reactive, programmed, sometimes wounded body, sometimes very well-trained, cultivated personal growth body. Like the monkey is that animal, and sometimes it's very people-pleasing and in service. But that's different than this monk, this higher self, this connection to the divine aspect. And unlike a lot of spiritual teachers and guides who are like, hey, we need to train the monkey to serve the monk, and we need to like be more monk-like, what I have seen, deep, real self-love, is actually the love between the monk and the monkey. Like when you can establish a relationship where they fall in love and one's not trying to train the other, they're not trying to, wrestle and volley for like the steering wheel. And you get into a place where you have this deep, intimate connection with your monkey and your monk, and they're in love. And that's what self-love is. And so from that place, I have, the playbook is, of course, filled with tools and exercises and practices. But for those of you who are just listening right now and are wondering, okay, well, what can I do to increase my relationship with my parts, my deep self, my high self, my low self? The invitation is, to deepen the self inquiry, to more self-awareness. Now, whether that's journaling, which is a wonderful way to get to know yourself better, or that's in exploratory inquiry dialogue with friends and lovers. It's really powerful with your partners to say, like, I'm in a parts conflict. Let me talk to my monkey. Let me share with you my monk. And these are the reactions he's having. And these are the ideals this is having. But bringing that into your everyday conversation can be very illuminating, so that you can actually see those parts of yourselves, and they're not going on just on your shoulders quietly or in your head. They're actually part of the bigger conversation that will help guide your relationships and and allow people to get to know you more vulnerably, because we all have those parts. It doesn't, we're often, we don't want to sound schizophrenic or don't want to reveal too much. And it's so endearing when someone just says, look, this is the struggle, the inner struggle that I'm having. I'm going to make it external. And by doing so, we recognize that we're all so similar on the inside. Okay, so I hope you got something powerful out of this transmission. Please leave it in the comments, follow, stay in touch, and have a beautiful lunation until next month. Blessings.